Hey, Sip and Talkers. It's your host, Joe, and with me as always, Sunny.
Hey, Joe. Now today, we're going to tackle something kind of personal.
Close to home, you might say.
That's it, yeah. We're going deep into toilet etiquette. The unspoken rules of the restroom.
It's funny, right? You think about it, and it's like such a universal human thing.
Absolutely.
But the etiquette, the rules, they change so much depending on where you are in the world.
Totally. And for this deep dive, we're starting with some intel from our friend Micky over at Sip&Talk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now full disclosure, Micky's Taiwanese, and he was very clear. These are his personal toilet habits. Not necessarily what everyone in Taiwan does,
Right.
but it's a great starting point for us. So what did Micky share?
Well, for starters, in public restrooms, if he's at the urinals and there's more than one open, he always tries to leave a space.
Like a urinal buffer zone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little social distancing even when you're taking care of business.
I can respect that. And then when it comes to number 2, Micky is all about the immediate flush.
Oh, yeah. Even mid-business if he has to. To avoid any unwanted odors.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. That's commitment. And at home, Micky's a sit-down-to-pee kind of guy. Keeps things cleaner. You know, and he says it's more considerate to the women in his life.
Makes sense. Fewer splashes, happier bathroom.
So that's Micky's personal code. Now, we don't know a ton about Taiwan specifically in terms of broader bathroom etiquette.
Right.
But we're going to use Micky's stuff as like a jumping off point.
The springboard.
Exactly. We'll compare that to customs from all over the world, and we'll even touch on some of the less than stellar press that Chinese tourists have gotten for their bathroom habits abroad.
It's a sensitive topic for sure.
Yeah.
But our mission today is to navigate this whole thing with a good sense of humor. Hopefully some surprising facts, maybe even a few, I never thought about it that way. Moments for you guys listening at home.
That's the goal. All right, so let's break down Micky's Taiwanese habits a bit more. This urinal spacing thing as an American, I get it. You know, if there are a bunch of empty urinals, yeah, leave a gap. It feels more polite. But it's not like I'm always thinking about it, you know? What about you?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's definitely more of a courtesy thing in the U.S., a preference for personal space. But if the bathroom's packed, practicality wins out, you know? It's interesting that Micky seems to really prioritize it even when there's no crowd pressure. Makes you wonder if personal space is maybe a bigger thing in Taiwanese restrooms in general.
That's a good point. Now, this flush immediately rule, even if you're not finished, that one threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
In the U.S., it's pretty much always finish your business, then flush. This idea of a midstream flush, it feels a little like jumping the gun.
Premature.
Exactly. What do you think is going on there?
It seems like odor control's the top priority here. It's like a cultural sensitivity to bathroom smells. You know, in the U.S., we definitely want a fresh bathroom, but the flush is tied to the completion of the task.
Right.
We might use air fresheners or ventilation to deal with smells. So maybe this immediate flush in Taiwan, it's like a more proactive approach to courtesy, you know, considering others.
Yeah. It's definitely a different strategy.
Okay, let's move on to the home rule, sitting down to pee. For cleanliness and being considerate to the ladies, what's your experience? Because in the U.S., it's pretty much a given that guys stand at least at home.
You're right. It's like the default setting for men, especially from a young age, and it's so ingrained we don't even think about it. But like, Micky, there are definitely guys who choose to sit for hygiene reasons or just to be thoughtful.
Yeah, let's be real. Some guys get teased mercilessly for it.
Oh, yeah. You get the getting soft jokes from your buddies.
For sure. But hey, if it means a cleaner bathroom, I'm all for it.
Yeah, who wants to clean up extra splashes? Not me.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little and look at toilet habits around the world. And one of the first big divides we see is paper versus water.
Yeah, the post-bathroom cleanup routine. That's where things get really interesting because you start to see these cultural and religious influences.
Totally.
Like in Turkey and some other Islamic countries, the whole concept of using paper is tied to this belief that paper is sacred.
Sacred? Well, because paper has historically been used for holy texts.
Oh, I see.
So using it for anything else is considered disrespectful. It's not just about convenience. It's about a deeply held belief.
Wow, that's a completely different way to think about toilet paper. So if paper's off the table, what do they use?
Water. They'll have a pitcher or a bucket near the toilet, or sometimes even built-in nozzles.
Interesting. And the numbers really back this up. You know, Turkey's average toilet paper consumption per person is way lower than in a lot of European countries and even some other Muslim majority countries. We're talking like 10 rolls a year in Turkey compared to almost 100 in Lebanon.
Right. It's a huge difference. And it shows that even within regions with similar religious backgrounds, local customs, and infrastructure, They all play a role.
Totally. And it gets even more basic in some parts of the world.
Absolutely. In some Muslim communities, in Ethiopia, for example, they'll use leaves, stones, wood, whatever's available. And this actually ties into another custom, the taboo against using your left hand for eating. Because the left hand is traditionally used for hygiene purposes.
Oh, wow. So bathroom habits can really impact other parts of life.
They really can.
Okay, let's jump over to Malaysia, another Muslim-majority country. Is it the same water-focused approach there?
Pretty much, yeah. Using water for cleaning is deeply ingrained in Malaysian culture because of Islamic customs. So you'll find a lot of public restrooms with water hoses or spray nozzles, but toilet paper might be hard to come by.
Got it. And that right-hand thing applies there too.
Absolutely. Left for cleaning, right for eating. It's something travelers should definitely be aware of. It makes you realize how much we take toilet paper for granted.
For real. Okay, so let's bring it home. North America, the U.S. and Canada, toilet paper central.
Pretty much. We're all about the toilet paper. Use it, flush it.
Yeah.
That's the expectation. Leaving used paper in the bin is a big no-no.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love our mega rolls.
Oh, yeah, I got to stock up. Those Costco packs are a lifesaver.
It's all about convenience and maybe a little bit about our infrastructure too,
Right, so we use a ton of paper. What about South America? Are they paper fans too?
They do use toilet paper, but there's a huge difference.
What's that?
You don't flush it.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously. You use the paper, then you toss it in a bin.
A bin?
Yeah, because a lot of South American sewage systems can't handle toilet paper. Flushing it can cause major plumbing issues.
Wow. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, and here's a pro tip. If you're ever traveling there, a lot of public restrooms don't even provide toilet paper. So bring your own.
Noted. That's a good travel hack.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the paper flushers, the paper binners, and the water washers. What about Europe? They seem to have a bit of everything going on.
You're right. Europe's kind of a mix. You'll usually find both toilet paper and bidets. France is really big on bidets, but they have toilet paper too, so there's a choice. And the words they use can be different depending on where you are. Like in the UK, you might hear WC or loo or restroom or lavatory.
So many options.
Yeah, and some of the Nordic countries, they're way ahead of the game with these high-tech self-cleaning toilets. And you're starting to see those pop up in other big cities in Europe too.
Self-cleaning toilets. Sign me up.
Right. It's like the future of bathroom hygiene.
Okay, and then there's Japan, the country that takes toilets to a whole other level.
Yeah, Japan is definitely in a league of its own when it comes to bathroom technology. Their public restrooms are known for being super clean-free and well-stocked with toilet paper. And get this, the toilet paper is designed to dissolve in water.
No way.
Yeah, so you flush the used paper, but you toss the empty roll in the bin.
So smart.
And key thing to remember if you're traveling there, don't flush any personal tissues. Those go in the bin. It's all about protecting the plumbing.
Got it. Okay, now I got to ask about these Japanese toilets. Are they really as crazy as everyone says?
They pretty much are. I mean, you might still find some traditional squat toilets called washiki, but the real showstoppers are the washlets. Yep. Yeah, these high-tech Western-style toilets with heated seats, automatic lids, and all these different cleaning functions with buttons for different areas and water pressures. It's basically a spa treatment for your backside.
Seriously? That's incredible.
Right. And even flushing can be high-tech with buttons on a control panel or levers or foot pedals. Some even have different flush options for saving water.
Wow, they really thought of everything. And what about the signs? Are they the usual stick figures?
You might see those, but you'll also see Japanese words like otarai or godarai or even kishushitsu, which can mean powder room, and sometimes just the English words restroom or koso.
So it's like a whole bathroom vocabulary lesson?
Yeah, and beyond the standard toilets, they have these multifunctional restrooms for accessibility, and you might even come across a non-flush toilet here and there. But the really fun part is they have themed restrooms.
Themed restrooms?
Yeah, like aquarium toilets where you can watch fish while you do your business.
You're kidding.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
And some of the highway rest stops have these crazy luxurious restrooms that feel like fancy hotels. And then there are culturally themed restrooms in traditional inns. It's all part of omotenashi, which is like this Japanese concept of hospitality. It basically means going above and beyond for your guests, and that extends to the restrooms. They'll have drying functions, sound privacy features like buttons that play flushing sounds to cover up any noises, child seats, and even little games in the urinals to encourage better aim.
Seriously, games in the urinals, Japan is on another level.
They really are. And for foreign visitors, the cleanliness and the fact that toilet paper is readily available and free is always a nice surprise.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move on to Italy. I know they have a certain bathroom fixture that a lot of tourists aren't familiar with.
Ah, yes, the bidet, the Netchinbon. It looks kind of like a low sink, and it's in pretty much every Italian bathroom. It's meant for cleaning yourself after you go.
Yeah.
And it's led to some pretty funny stories from tourists who thought it was a foot bath or tried to drink from it.
I can only imagine.
There's a whole different approach to bathroom hygiene.
Have you ever used one?
I have. It definitely takes some getting used to, figuring out the right technique and water pressure.
Yeah.
But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty effective.
All right. From Italy to the Netherlands, they have a pretty unique solution for when you gotta go.
Yeah, in some Dutch cities, you'll find these open-air urinals for men right on the street.
On the street?
Yep, just out in the open.
That's a bold move.
It is. And another funny thing about the Netherlands is people will keep calendars in their bathrooms.
Calendars in the bathroom?
Yeah, it's kind of a quirky Dutch habit. They use the bathroom as a place to keep track of birthdays and stuff.
Interesting. And at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, they use a fly symbol to indicate the restrooms. A fly. That's kind of fitting.
Right. It gets the point across.
Okay, speaking of unique habits, let's talk about Germany. And this term I came across, Sitzpinkler.
Sitzpinkler basically means sit pee. It refers to men who sit down to pee.
Okay.
And in Germany, this is totally accepted. In some cases, it's even encouraged. It's seen as more hygienic and considerate.
Really? That's so different from a lot of other Western countries where standing is the norm.
It is. There was a survey that showed a surprisingly high percentage of German men sit down to pee either all the time or most of the time.
Wow.
And Sweden and Denmark also have pretty high rates of Sitzpinkler compared to places like the U.S., Mexico, and Singapore.
Interesting. So cultural norms really are all over the place.
For sure.
And it's not just Europe, right? I heard Japan is seeing a shift too.
You're right. More and more Japanese men are choosing to sit. And it might have to do with those high-tech toilets we talked about.
Makes sense.
The comfort and the extra features might just make sitting a more appealing option. So technology could actually be influencing bathroom habits.
It really makes you think about all these things we do without even realizing why. Like, why do so many men stand to pee? I remember growing up, there was this unspoken rule about it. Like, sitting down was somehow less manly.
Yeah, you pick up on these social cues and expectations from a young age, and they stick with you.
Totally. And speaking of sitting, I read something about how it can actually be beneficial for men's health, especially for guys with prostate issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently sitting can help with bladder emptying and might even reduce the risk of UTIs. So it's not just about cleanliness, it could be about health too.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what starts as an etiquette thing could have these unexpected health benefits.
It's true. And to all the guys out there who are thinking, but it's awkward to sit. I mean, clearly it works for people in other countries.
I can respect that.
Yeah.
It's all about personal preference and practicality in the end.
Totally. And it makes you think about how we teach these habits to kids,
For sure.
Yeah.
Maybe encouraging boys to sit at home is a good starting point.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something a little more sensitive. The whole thing about Chinese tourists and their bathroom habits.
Yeah, this is a topic that needs to be approached carefully. We can't make sweeping generalizations. It's true that in the past, as Chinese tourism was booming, there were some concerns about public sanitation and hygiene practices among some tourists. This was partly due to the fact that China's economic development was happening so quickly that infrastructure and public health education, especially in rural areas, couldn't always keep up.
Right. And it's important to remember that this isn't unique to China. I mean, I remember reading about India's Clean India campaign, which was launched to address similar issues.
Exactly. A lot of countries that go through rapid development face these kinds of challenges. The Chinese government has recognized this, and they've been working hard to promote more civilized tourism and improve public behavior both within China and abroad. Like in 2013, they implemented a tourism law that included guidelines on etiquette in public places. And they've been investing in upgrading public restrooms and educating people about proper bathroom behavior.
That's good to hear. But we can't ignore the fact that there have been some negative media reports about Chinese tourists, particularly in the 2010s. Things like public urination and defecation littering in inappropriate places.
Those reports definitely grabbed headlines, and it's understandable why people reacted to them. But it's crucial to remember that these were isolated incidents, and we can't judge an entire population based on the actions of a few individuals,
right?
Especially with so many Chinese tourists traveling internationally. Even a small number of negative incidents can create a skewed perception. And we also have to consider the cultural context. For people who grew up in areas with limited sanitation infrastructure, adapting to different norms in other countries takes time. It's a learning curve.
That makes sense. It's about education and adapting to new standards.
Exactly. Hygiene education has been expanding rapidly in China, but changing deep-rooted habits takes time and consistency. Countries like Japan, where public etiquette is so ingrained, it's a different situation. And then there's the infrastructure issue. Even within China, some public restrooms have historically lacked basic things like toilet paper or soap, and squat toilets, which offer less privacy, have been more common. So these factors can definitely influence hygiene practices. I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it. Okay, so let's get a little weird for a minute. Yeah. I stumbled across this fascinating and kind of gross conversation about medieval toilet etiquette on Reddit.
Oh, yeah. What'd they say?
Apparently, at medieval banquets, leaving the table to use the bathroom was considered super rude.
Really?
Yeah. And get this, there's a story about this astronomer, Tycho Brahe, who apparently died because he refused to leave a banquet to pee.
He died because he didn't want to pee. Wow, talk about peer pressure.
Right. So what did people do if they couldn't just excuse themselves?
Well, dedicated restrooms weren't really a thing back then, so people would use chamber pots or buckets or find a discreet corner. And the cleaning methods were a far cry from what we're used to today. We're talking Haley's cloths, sticks, stones, shells even.
Seriously?
Yeah, and there's this writer, Rabelais, who in his books suggested using a goose as the best cleaning tool.
A goose? Like a live bird?
Apparently.
Yeah.
And castles had these things called garderobes, which were basically toilets, but they didn't always empty into the moat like people think. Sometimes they just went into a cesspool.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Yeah, it was a different time for sure. And get this, there was actually a royal position called the groom of the stool.
The groom of the stool, what did they do?
They basically assisted the monarch with their, bathroom needs.
That sounds like a pretty intimate job.
It was. It was a sign of trust and closeness to the king or queen, although contrary to what some people think, it didn't actually involve doing the wiping.
Okay, good to know. And were there any hygiene practices at all back then?
Well, some people did wash their hands before meals, although surprisingly, that practice actually became less popular in later centuries, like the 17th and 18th centuries.
Really? I would have thought it would be the opposite.
Yeah, it's strange. And the ancient Romans apparently used sponges on sticks, sometimes soaked in vinegar for cleaning.
Sponges on sticks. That's something else.
It is.
Okay, let's wrap things up by talking about Islamic toilet etiquette, which we touched on earlier. There are some pretty specific guidelines, right?
Absolutely. In Islam, the rules and recommendations around using the bathroom are called qada al-hajjah. And while the Quran gives general guidance on cleanliness, like washing your hands and face with clean earth if water isn't available, the more detailed practices come from the hadith, which are the sayings and traditions of the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, so what are some of the specific things Muslims do?
Well, there's a big emphasis on finding a secluded spot away from water paths and places where people gather. You're supposed to enter with your left foot and exit with your right, and you should face away from the Qibla, which is the direction of prayer towards Mecca. And there's a specific prayer you're supposed to say before entering.
Wow, it's very detailed.
It is. And you're supposed to be silent while you're in the bathroom. No talking, no greeting, no eating.
Makes sense.
And after you go, you're supposed to clean yourself with water using your left hand. This is called istinja. And they often use a small container called a badna to help with this. And washing your hands thoroughly afterward is super important. It's even mentioned in the Quran. And when you leave the bathroom, there's a specific prayer of thanks you're supposed to recite.
So it's not just about physical cleanliness, it's about spiritual purity too.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. From urinal etiquette to medieval bathroom practices to Islamic hygiene rituals. It's amazing how diverse toilet habits are around the world.
It really is. And what I find so fascinating is that it's not just about practicality. It's about culture, religion, history, even technology. All these things come together to shape how we approach something so basic.
Yeah, it's true. And it makes you realize that something we often take for granted can actually reveal a lot about a society's values and beliefs.
Absolutely. It's a window into different ways of life. And it's a good reminder that what might seem strange or even rude to us might be perfectly normal or even sacred to someone else.
Totally.
Yeah.
So next time you find yourself in a bathroom, whether it's a high-tech Japanese washlet or a simple outhouse, take a moment to appreciate the history and the cultural influences that have shaped our relationship with this very necessary space.
Well said. And on that note, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of toilet etiquette, Be sure to check out our friend Micky's YouTube channel. He always has interesting insights to share.
That's right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And happy flushing.
Okay, maybe let's not end on that note, but seriously, thanks for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.